and walked away, ant-like, under his ungainly burden, virtually obscured by the hat, the towering basket. Only the legs showed underneath, ragged breeches, skinny calves, dust-caked. The villagers shook their heads, especially Gory. "He'll be back," Gory's neighbor said. The road that had been broad and friendly and sunlit down in the valley dwindled to a track and finally to a narrow slot among the rounded boulders and the tree roots of the forest, and wound in steeper and steeper climbs into the hills. The ragged young traveler hitched the pack up against the rake of branches and the angle of the trail and kept going, using the bow staff for balance in the climb. It would have been wiser, perhaps, to have slept in the hedgerows another night and attempt the hill path by morning. But Taizu was beyond fear of ghosts and demons, and the only dragons Taizu thought worth fearing always walked in human form. The sun sank below the hills now, throwing the path beneath the trees into deep shade. Not far, the villagers had said. But if that estimation was wrong, then Taizu reckoned the villagers were right in at least one thing. These woods were safe from bandits. The bandit was a fool who would hunt on Saukendar's mountain. And that was greater safety than Taizu had known in weeks. So Taizu climbed in the forest shadow, struggled with a basket pack in the clutch of branches, until the scent of smoke and horse came on the wind, until the shape of rustic buildings shone in the twilight, pen and pasture, and a sun-edged shape of a man carrying water to a bay horse, whose coat shone brilliant red in a sudden glimpse of sunset. There was a storm passing to the north, clouds like a slate-gray wall above the hills. Red light from the warning sun edged everything in fire: the horse, the edges of the buildings, the man. Taizu did not breathe for a moment. Saukendar seemed less real in that moment than he had been all the weeks since Hua Province, less real and more godlike. But a man who had renounced the world and could not be reckoned like other men. Saukendar had turned his back on the court, his great wealth and high station, and escaped the regent and the emperor who had betrayed him. He had come here, beyond the limits of the kingdom, to perfect his art and to perfect his soul in the solitude of the mountains. Saukendar had come close as any man to that perfection when he was in the world. The old emperor's right hand, the one honest man in a court increasingly corrupt and full of wicked men. Saukendar had defended the law and the old emperor, upheld the poor against the rich, and upheld the honest lords against the flatterers, while the old emperor grew weaker and died. But Saukendar had not been able to stand against the foolishness of the boy heir, Bajan, who had allied himself with Lord Gita of Anjan province, and accused his father's appointed regent, Lord Hesu, of conspiracy and adultery with his wife. That was how Lord Gita of Anjan came to stand behind the throne, and how Lord Hesu and the Empress Maya both went under the axe, and how 500 men of the Imperial Guard had hunted Saukendar to kill him. But Saukendar had killed 20 of them on his way to the border, and, they said, no few after, until he had gone into retirement in these hills just outside Hoishi province, and Lord Gita and his men had understood it was far wiser to let him stay there, unmolested. That was Saukendar, and if he had renounced the world and decided to seek his own perfection, then perhaps he had succeeded in that too, and the gods cast a special light about him. But a second glance showed this man limped, and the light went out when he passed the barn and when the horse moved toward the rail fence. It was not Lord Saukendar himself then, only some servant. Taizu felt somewhat the fool. Of course the weapons master, the emperor's bodyguard and champion, would have at least one menial to go with him, or he would have taken a servant from the village below, someone to cook his meals and tend the order.